started. So I am outside, so excuse me if it gets loud, but it was really nice out and I've been inside all day. So the focus of this call was really going to be about inviting, because I feel like that's where a lot of people say that they're still struggling, even in our diamond group. It seems like there are more and more people each week that are posting about that being their biggest issue. So that's where I wanted our focus to kind of be, because I know that everybody kind of has their own way of inviting, but I was going to share kind of what's worked for me. So I'm just going to jump into it so we can get started. So in my opinion, there are going to be, especially when you talk about presenting the coaching opportunity to other people, I know that's the one that's probably the scariest. Inviting someone into a challenge group can sometimes be a lot easier than asking someone if they're interested in coaching. So our easier route is to just ask them about the challenge group. So the first route of our customers are obviously going to be people who come from people who are interested in the challenge groups. And so what I've found now that I look back, I've kind of been just kind of keeping track of where my people are coming from, what I'm posting and what they're relating to. And so I can relay that to you guys. So I have 3 different ways that I get challengers, coaches, and prospects. And the reason that there's 3 different ones is that you're going to attract different people at different levels that they're at. So it's always important to constantly be posting about your next challenge group, because those people, let me mute someone. There we go. That's going to attract a certain person rather than when you do the coaching opportunity call out. So for me, there's also the lifestyle post. So when you're talking about Beachbody coaching, I know some people are like, well, how do you present the opportunity? How do you invite someone? I have never really personally invited someone unless they've kind of stuck out. They've asked me about it before, or like commented or liked one of my posts about it. And they started kind of engaging in what I was doing, which made me think maybe they're interested, which made me message them. But what I've done is post a lot about the lifestyle of coaching. So as a brand new coach, you don't have the trips yet. You don't have the big paychecks yet. And not that we talk a lot about that in public anyway, but you just don't have those things to really talk about just yet. So you have to understand too, the people who are watching you, sometimes just getting $100 a week is a big deal to them. And of course, we don't want to talk about just the money, but you have to understand that when you start to build your business, that it is important to think about that part of it, because that's something that I started doing more of, and realizing that there's going to be people who come from this sector who are just interested in a challenge group, interested in getting healthy and fit. So I always have that going. Then there's going to be people who are attracted to the lifestyle. The lifestyle isn't just the money or the monetary. It's being a part of a community, winning free prizes. Danielle's a good example of this. She loves free stuff, and I do too. I love getting the boxes of free goodies. It's like the Success Club Monopoly thing. I was like, I have to have that. It's the most ridiculous thing ever. But there are people who are actually attracted to that. And the lifestyle of being able to be a part of a community that has like the Super Sundays and being at those events and seeing us post about that, they become more interested in it. So there's going to be that sector of people who are interested in that. So it's going to be, they're maybe interested in the challenge group and coaching. And then you're going to have people down the road, which is what I'm kind of getting into now, is people who are attracted to the business part of it. They are into health and fitness. They've done Beachbody programs. Now they're ready to build their business, and they're reaching out to you. That's kind of the timeline of coaching as well. In the beginning, you're going to spend a lot more time recruiting challengers, and that's where your coaches and your good coaches are going to come from. And then over time, it's the percentages move a little bit. You'll notice that it might be 50-50 challengers and lifestyle. People are attracted to the lifestyle part of coaching. And then down the road, you might see people are really attracted to the business part of it, because I replaced my income with it, or I got to do this or that. And so that's where the majority of the people come from. And so when you think about that, instead of feeling like, oh, I can't personally invite someone, there's no way I could send them a message, you don't have to. When your posting is kind of geared towards that, like if you know a lot of my people are going to come from my challenge group, so I need to make sure that I am posting about my next challenge group. I need to make sure they know I have a next challenge group, because sometimes they don't. And then also, if you feel like you're a brand new coach, share the little successes. Those are big successes to other people. So, being able to get that call with Carl Deichler, that's huge. Like, that's something to share on your personal page and be like, listen, I got this, the CEO call. And if your coach got it, I'm going to post mine and tag my people in it so that people know that's a big deal. And it is a big deal. And then if you got the free summit ticket, like, that's something to celebrate. And don't just celebrate it within our coach group. Celebrate that outside of the coach group and let people know what's going on and create excitement about it. I remember when I was a coach and I watched Sarah's video, and it's funny because I made one that's almost identical. But, I was really unsure about the whole Beachbody thing, so it was very difficult for me to find ways to post and what to post about. So when I look back now, there are things that I could have changed, and this is one of them. I wish I would have just posted more about that lifestyle. I didn't really like to post a lot about the free stuff that I won, and I wish I would have done more of that because now I know, like, it attracted awesome coaches along the way. So that's one of those things. So I also wanted to talk about, let me jump in here. So I think one of the things that people are struggling with too is focusing so much on their like page and building a like page or creating a like page. And I want you guys to understand that it's important to have that as a foundation, but that's not your foundation as a new coach. Your foundation is going to be on your personal page. We don't want you to spend so much time and effort into building your like page up, boosting posts and spending money on stuff or whatever it is, and then get really discouraged. Because here's the truth. Facebook, you have to pay to get your stuff seen now. And it's changing every single day. Facebook analytics are changing, and there will be one day where my stuff is being seen and the next day it's not. So we don't want you guys to be all frustrated with if you're building a like page and only sharing your stuff, your important call outs and everything there. Because it may not be seen by the people who need to see it. So starting with your personal page, and I know that sounds scary, you can kind of just test the waters and find ways that work for you and then eventually move over to that like page. I still say that you should create the page and have it there and still post on the page, but I don't think that you need to just rely heavily on that. I didn't even have a like page until this last August, I think it was. So you don't have to have that, and I actually recommend not focusing on that. And I think that's one of the things too that's kind of happening that I'm seeing is people open up the like page and they're really scared to post things on their personal page. So they post it on their like page because they know not a lot of people are going to see it, or they think the people who like my like page are the ones who actually want to see it. So they're going to see it. But you need to be focused on the people who need to see what you have to offer. And that's usually your closest friends, your family members, and those on your personal page who don't even know you have the like page yet. So that's what we wanted to talk about too today as far as social media. I wanted to kind of open it up for questions here in the middle because I know we kind of reserve those for the end, and I don't want you guys to miss out on any questions. So I was going to see if you had any questions for about 5 minutes right here before we jump into the next little thing. And if you notice there's like a little mic, you have to unmute yourself. And there's a chat box. Okay, there may not be any questions. No questions about the like page or anything like that? Okay. So the next thing I was going to talk about posting in social media was creating like your own reality show with your social media. I don't want people to feel like when they go to your page that they've lost you as a person. And that's what you want to try to do. You want to weave in Beachbody into your normal everyday life. Even though we have like those outlines of, you can post a motivational thing in the morning and this then and this then. That's just a guideline to give you ideas and to brainstorm. But we want you to be able to still be yourself, share yourself, but just weave in Beachbody when you see it, possible. I looked back today. It's pretty funny when I was making that video and I saw some of the stuff I posted a year ago today, and it was like, oh my gosh. But I was not good at weaving in at all. I mean, I was really just like, here's Shakeology, here's the YouTube link, watch it, you'll love it, buy it from me, bam. And that's what I did. And so I still made it okay. So we have hope. But you just want to try to make your own reality show. And for those of you who follow Jason and I, or Sarah and Justin, and you've got Chris and Danielle. And so they kind of share what their everyday life is like and then add in Beachbody where they can. So it's not so, people aren't following them because of the Beachbody stuff, if that makes sense. So you want your personal page to be your personal page and just weave it in when you can. Okay, so the next thing we were going to talk about, we have to understand that no one wants to be a part of something that's difficult and feels like it's going to be really hard. And this is one thing that I kind of had trouble with in the beginning of coaching was I felt like Fiona, she's going crazy. No, you can't get the runner. I had no time management. I had no idea what I needed to work on. And I feel like a lot of you are probably in that point right now. You have full-time jobs, full-time moms, and it's like, how much time should I spend and where should I spend it? We're going to give you some guidelines of like a power hour, like a thing to do. Now, you probably saw in our little sheet, there's a what we call a success tracker. That's pretty much what your power hour consists of. It has little checklists of things that you should be doing each day. Are you going to do every single one of those every single day? No. But it just gives you a guideline of things. So it has your personal development, drinking your Shakeology, and getting your workout in. Those are the three most important things on the top of my list. Have they fallen to the end sometimes? Yes. And I don't let that happen, because every time that happens, everything else kind of falls apart too. So make sure that those three things happen. If it has to be at the beginning of the day, make it at the beginning of the day. So the other things on the power hour list should be messaging and follow-ups. It doesn't mean that you need to sit down and answer every single message. Pick a time frame, and this is going to save your life. Pick a time and say, okay, I have 30 minutes to answer as many questions as I can or follow up with as many people as I can and go interact on so-and-so's pages, and give yourself just that time. Don't get lost on scrolling on Facebook, because it happens as coaches. Unfortunately, there's really intriguing things that pull our attention all over Facebook. So when you log on to Facebook, go on with purpose and know what you're going on for. I'm going on to follow up with my challengers. So I go directly to the challenge group and I make sure that I do that and stick to that time frame. There's even, I'll share with you guys in the group, but there's even like little time management apps where you can time out. I want to spend 20 minutes responding here. I want to spend 20 minutes here, because when you're really pressed for time as a coach, a brand new coach, you really have to allot your time to the important stuff. We don't want you guys getting sidetracked on stuff you might see us posting in the TNT page, or someone else talking about boosting posts or Facebook ads or creating ebooks and things like that, because you don't need to be worrying on the things that may or may not get you results right now. We want you to worry about the stuff that's going to get you those results. And that's why we've kind of eliminated all the fluff for you guys, so that you can start where the action items really need to be taking place and getting done. So the other things on the little checklist, of course, sorry, there's a huge truck coming by. I thought it was going to be really peaceful outside. It's totally not. But the other things on the checklist item is adding friends to Facebook. So I had a new coach that I talked to yesterday, and she has 30, 40 friends on Facebook, which is fine. That's nothing to be scared about. She's just not on social media as much. So my advice to her was, don't start huge and say, I'm going to add 3 friends to social media every day. Start low and say, I'm going to add 10 a week, and just make sure that you build off of that, because 10 a week over a month, there you are, you now have 40 new friends on your friends list. And they're obviously going to be people that you're mutual friends with and stuff like that. And I also have a video of how to find friends other than those who are mutual friends, and we'll get to that as well. But I was talking to her and I said that was one of the biggest things that I think is important, is continuing to add people to your friends list, because eventually these people will start seeing what you have to say and what you're posting. People are like, well, how do you contact someone? In all honesty, I wish I would have done this in the beginning, but if someone likes a post on, say I have a post about clean eating detox group, but they didn't comment, I'm going to send them a message and say, hey, I noticed you, liked my post. Are you interested in the clean eating or the detox group? And so that was something I didn't do in the beginning, that I wrote down to make sure I tell you guys, because those people aren't just liking it because they like the picture. They're liking it because they are possibly interested. They just didn't have time to comment. They're running around in the grocery and they hurried up and clicked like, and they're like, okay, I'll go back to it later. And so don't think you're bothering these people because they wouldn't like it just out of curiosity or whatever. So don't worry about doing that. And I highly recommend doing that. Sarah, have you done that in the past? Like if they like? like a post, just going ahead and messaging them. Because that's one thing I wish I would have done a lot more of in the beginning.
Yeah, I didn't start doing that until a couple months ago. And I mean, I don't know that I've gotten I've gotten people either following me from my like page from it or just continue to follow. So it's definitely helped. I wish I would have started that in the beginning too.
Yeah. And I think we probably didn't because we were fearful. That was me. I was very scared to talk to anyone about anything. And even if someone like even commented they were interested, I was like sweating to message them. So it's one of those things that you just have to kind of get over. And somebody asked, like, when did you start getting over that? And honestly, it just wasn't until I had been to Summit, seen the bigger picture, and had confidence in what I had to offer, or confidence in it. And it's when I first started, I'd only been on Shakeology for a month, so it was very hard for me to be like. To me, I was like, I feel like a hypocrite because I haven't been using it for very long. I've only been using the Shakeology for a month. And so for me, it was like, I don't want to tell people all these grand things that it does because I don't know that for sure. And that could be where a lot of people are too, especially the new coaches who sign up with the challenge groups. And they're like, well, I haven't really even gotten my transformation. I feel your pain. But you can meet people where they're at and you can invite them on the journey with you. And I think one of the biggest things is we don't try to act like we know it all. As new coaches, I think, Jason and I were talking about this last night. I think one of the biggest struggles that we have is like as soon as a new coach signs up, they kind of feel, here's Jason, hello. They kind of feel alone or feel like they're kind of doing everything by themselves because they don't have a team yet. Even though they have their upline sponsor, it's kind of like we give you all the information, but it can be overload and they feel a little alone about it. And we were just saying, how awesome would it be is if you signed up and then you were like, I'm going to enlist 4 of my closest friends and family to do this with me at this exact same time, so that there's that accountability structure and you have like those pillars of strength around you to not only hold you accountable, but to have people along the journey with you as well. And so it's like, teamwork, and this person has a strength that you don't. And so it really makes a big difference. And I'm talking about coaching, not just a challenge group. So if you enlisted 4 coaches on your team, 1 could be your spouse and the other 3 friends and family members, and you all started together. And if you think about it, Sarah, me, Chanel, Jason, Ed, kind of all of us started together. We didn't know what the heck we were doing. We had a little upline support, but not a lot. So we were kind of leaning on each other with ideas and everything. And, because our groups are bigger, our coaching group is bigger now, there's not as much of the people on the same level anymore. So it gets a little confusing because you'll have one person, talking about this, another person talking about this. So it's nice to have those people on the level, which is why we do these private groups and everything each month. But if you could enlist people at the same level, it'd be great. So I wish I would have done more of that. And then let's see, what did I want to? I said, if you aren't taking care of yourself first, you've got to first and foremost do that. And I just talked about that a second ago, why that's important. Because if you don't do,
put this checkered, by the way.
What am I doing?
You press that, everybody will show up.
That okay, wasn't necessary.
Oh.
Thanks. But anyway, what was I talking about? I can't remember. Oh, the first 3 things that you need to be doing: personal development, your workout, and making sure that you're just taking care of yourself. And so if you're doing those things, the rest of the things will be in line, because I've done it the other way around, and it doesn't last very long. So talking about the conversations, one of the things that I have been doing and what's really helped me is it's almost summertime. So to create a conversation, it would be very easy to post something about, if you're going on a trip, you could post about, take a picture of your trip or a past trip that you went on and say, I'm thinking about going here again or planning another trip. And the people who comment or like on it, it's going to create conversation. What happens when you're talking about a trip? Automatically people are like, I'm going to be in a bikini, it's summertime, and it may arise. That question might arise. So you have to think of things where you could lead the conversation into a possible conversation about bikini boot camp or a clean eating detox, or, oh, you just got back from a trip. You could do the 3-day refresh, or you could do the detox group with me. So you have to kind of think of ways to create the conversation to lead it into that. And that's kind of what I've been doing with my posting and conversations with people as well.
Asking questions is another really good thing to do.
Yeah, and I actually wrote this down next. So ask more questions and find a chance to lead into the conversation. And that's kind of the same thing. It sounds ridiculous, but ask as many questions as possible. When people see that you're asking questions, and I mean good questions, not like creepy questions. So asking really good questions. Oh, where are you going for vacation? Is your whole family going? Is it just you and your husband? How exciting. We went there last year. Did you do this? Whatever it is that you want to discuss with them. And it also helps form them. We always see like the way to form people. You should ask about their family, their occupation, their relationship, and then the message. This is kind of the new age way of forming. You just kind of are able to do all of that with a general, like, good conversation and not feel like a robot, So, then, one of the other things I wrote down was connect without an agenda. Even though we have those things in our head, there will be times where I'm actually talking to someone and I'm like, Brooke, snap out of it. I'm supposed to be like inviting them to my challenge group, because I get lost in the conversation. And that's how you should feel. You should feel like it's a natural conversation and you're talking about anything and everything. And one of the things that, questions that I asked in our diamond group last week was, what could your ideal customer, your ideal person talk to you all day about? For me, that would be like their wedding planning, because I have a lot of people who are getting married. So I could get lost in conversation about wedding planning. So it'd be smart for me to post more about that, because I can bring up that type of conversation that would help me lead into my possible challenge group. So does that make sense, everybody? Okay. All right. And this is one thing I learned from Katie Heifner. I don't know how to say her last name, but she's an awesome coach. She's on the Bombshell team.
Correct.
Yeah, she's on the Bombshell team, and I loved this. And she calls it signs. While you're talking to someone, you want to find their signs, their strengths, their interests, their goals, and their needs. And once you have all of those things, you can then start talking to them about the opportunity that you might have to offer them. You don't just jump right in and, like a doctor, you go into the doctor's office and they immediately write you a prescription. You want a diagnosis. It's the same thing with this. Until you get all of these 4 things, you don't want to dive in and ask them for anything. And I know coaches who have done that and they're successful with it, but they probably would have been a lot more successful with creating really meaningful relationships had they taken those steps before. And so that's what I'm trying to do in my conversations now. It's, I'm focusing on their strengths and complimenting them. That's huge. When you are creating conversations with someone, the first thing out of your mouth should be a compliment. Hey, I saw your new house. I love it. You're such a good decorator. Whatever it is that could make them feel really good about themselves and being genuine about it. Of course, it has to be genuine, or that'd be kind of creepy as well. And then you find their interests. So if you're talking to them about, the vacation that they might be going on, there's ways to work in their interests. If they are saying, oh, we're going out boating. Oh, do you guys boat a lot? Do you guys go to the river? Do you go to the lake? Just being able to create those conversations and weave stuff in. Goals. And so once you have been able to get into the conversation, you might hear goals of, yeah, we're going to be in a swimsuit. I really need to start dieting. And that's usually when they say, I noticed you've been posting all this stuff. They'd be blind to not see that I'm a coach and I do these things. But as a new coach, they don't know that yet. So you might have to bring that up. You might have to say, by the way, if they say, well, we're going to be in a swimsuit a lot. I really need to diet down. I need to do this. I need to do that. You say, oh, well, I could help you. I've got this and this that's coming up, and you could join. And then their needs. Of course, it's like, some people really want to just feel important. So if they want to just be in a free challenge group and feel important, or a ongoing, hold on, I'm going to mute this. I don't know why it lets me mute some people and not others. There we go. So anyway, you got to find their needs, and sometimes their needs are going to be different than others. So don't assume that everyone wants a certain goal. And I think in needs, it's really important to find their why. And that's one thing, again, I did not do in the beginning that I really wish I would have done earlier on, because now that I do it, it makes the whole process so much easier. because when you ask their needs, you say, okay, that's your goal. You want to look good in a swimsuit, but that's not really the goal. When you peel back all the layers and you get down to their needs and their wants, it's actually probably they want to feel confident in their swimsuit in front of their family or their friends that they're going on vacation with. They want to feel good again in front of their husband and feel sexy on their trip. And once you just start peeling all that back, they start to see the true reason why they're doing it. So then when you say, well, it's this much money or whatever, when you get into that conversation, they remember that. They remember their why, and they're like, this is important to me. But if you just jump into the conversation and because they commented on something and say, hey, you want to be in my challenge group? It's da-da-da-da. It's going to be very just catching them off guard, and it's just not going to be genuine. So I really like that. So I'm going to start utilizing the signs more often. And so I also wrote down connect, connect, connect. And one thing that Jason and I have been doing, and we heard a lot about this, and Katie talked about it in her call, is get on the phone or get in person. Nothing can replace hearing someone on the phone, getting on a call like this, or just meeting them for coffee, especially as a new coach. As you start to grow, you're not going to have as much time to do those one-on-one connections, which I would love to do still when I do have the time. But as a new coach, I wish I would have done that more often, because there were so many people like Melanie. She's been my challenger for like ages, and I never even got to meet her in real life, and talk to her, as much as I had wanted to. So it's important to do that. And one of the quotes was Eric Worre. He was like, you are, as a network marketer, a new coach, you're not really working the business unless you're ear to ear or face to face. And so if you're having a conversation online, move it to the phone as quickly as you can. And you can have that whole conversation over the phone. That's kind of weird if it's someone you don't know very well. Yes, I understand that. But if they're interested in what you have to offer, you could say, hey, it is so much easier. I'm in a hurry. Is there any way that you could call me tonight? Or I can call you at 9 o'clock. Does that sound okay? And so it just makes it easier for you to contact them. You're not waiting on them. And then most of the people, people would say yes to me, and I'd be like, oh gosh, they said yes, like heart palpitations, because I didn't like getting on the phone. But now that I've done it, I'm like, why did I not do that a long time ago? I had to get over that fear. I wish I would have gotten over that fear a while ago, because I've created some amazing relationships with challengers who turn into just amazing coaches. And that was one thing that I wish I would have done really badly. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, when you're doing that, number one, the reason why they want to hear your voice is because that way they can see your passion, and that's huge. Like, you can't do that through text message. I mean, I move things to phone conversations as quickly as possible, but at the beginning, especially for some of you guys that are introverted, the way to get around that is Beachbody is a job. Your job is to help people. You need to find out what they need, and so you got a mission. So if you are going to get somebody on the phone, have a plan, have an action plan before you get on the phone. What are the results that you want to achieve? And have a list in front of you if you need to. Have a time limit, so you don't even have a chance for your mind to get nervous, because this is somebody that you have to extrapolate information from, period. That's really important. It'll help you to kind of get through, like, this isn't getting to know somebody as a friend. This is, you need to find out, ask the right questions.
It is getting to know them as a friend, though.
Well, what I'm saying is that you are, but you have to have a mission so that the nervousness doesn't overcome.
You have a genuine mission to help them, and that's where you should lead your call into that. And, I said don't have an agenda. You should have an agenda of what the whole goal of the call is, but we don't want you to feel like, oh, at this point I need to do this, and I need to make sure that I ask for the sale, and, anything like that. But there are outlines to be able to say, okay, this is the point. It should be a natural progression of the conversation. You should know when the right time is to say, hey, you'd be great for my challenge group. I really think this would be good for you. Now, when I get people on the phone, it's usually to the point where they're teeter-tottering on if or they want to or they don't want to coach or be in a challenge group. And that, I don't think anybody's ever said no once you get them on the phone. And I think I've got 100% success rate getting them on the phone. And they just needed that little extra push, and for someone to give them a compliment, to encourage them and make them feel important and that they're going to be valued in my group. And that's really important for them to feel that. And I don't think they can feel that when I'm typing on the computer. But when I get on the phone with them, they're like, wow, I really want to do this. I think this is going to be perfect for me. And they're excited. And it's really important for that follow-up. That's one of the things that I didn't do well in the beginning either. making sure I followed up with all the people that I had talked to and going back and still like nurturing that friendship, even if they said no in a message or if they said they weren't interested, still making sure that I kept up with them, because a lot of those people came back around. Another thing that's a huge tip, make it a point and this helps you create relationships or better relationships, make a point that every single day you text at least 2 people randomly. It can be a friend, it can be a family member, anybody, and just give them words of encouragement. It doesn't matter what it is, just something to encourage someone else. And over time, if you think about that 2 times a day, over and over and over, the effect that you can make on someone's life. And it can be the same person over and over. If it's a challenger in your free challenge group that's really struggling that you feel like, or a friend at work that's going through some stuff, just making sure you're encouraging them. Jason met when Chanel hurt her ankle really bad at Super Sunday, we were in the hospital, and he actually met someone working there. His name was Mario, and he was working, putting up the stuff in Chanel's room, and he was super nice. And Jason started chatting with him, and he just befriended him on Facebook. And his wife actually sent Jason a message today and said, thank you so much for meeting my husband. You have changed our relationship, just because Jason sent him some motivational videos. Like, that was it. I mean,
he hasn't even bought anything yet.
But the relationship there and the referral from that, and just helping them feel like somebody cares about them, because there's a possibility that they haven't felt cared for in a long time, or they've been neglected by their family. You just never know what people are going through, and trying to meet them where they're at. Another thing, I kind of wanted to bring this up. We don't want to be those kiosk guys in the mall. So you know those guys that work at the little stands, and you like run the other way, and you're like, don't make eye contact.
Those Israelis with the Dead Sea minerals.
It's like, don't make eye contact with them. They're going to come running after me with those stupid scrubs. We don't want to be that person. So think about, how can you be the opposite of that? I don't know how they still exist and why they're still there, but you want to.
It's a good product.
But you want to make sure that you're coming from the other end and not being that person. And that's why it's so important, I think, to come off in a non-confrontational way with the free challenge groups, making sure you're doing those once a month. And it can be exhausting. It can be tiring when you're doing those free challenge groups for month to month and feeling like, well, I don't feel like I'm getting a lot of traction, or people are not really wanting to move on to another group yet. I think a lot of that comes from fear, because you might have one person that wants to move on, and you think, well, I only have one person to be in the challenge group, and I don't feel like that's enough people. Just team up with someone else on the team, and you can have a challenge group together, or you can be in your uplines challenge group. So don't ever feel like you don't have someone to add your person into, and deny asking them because you're afraid of where you're going to put them. So I wanted to throw that out there as well. And the last thing I want to talk about is develop a reputation of going the extra mile. Customer service, we are our own little business. So sending little thank you cards to your first customers, and sending a thank you card to someone who has helped you. Ways of showing gratitude in any way you can. And that's kind of the same thing with the 2 text messages of encouragement, but you also want to make sure you're being grateful. And those things really help over time build and sustain relationships with people. And another thing that I wish I would have done in the beginning. So this is like a book of things I wish I would have done in the beginning, and I should just publish it. But I want to make sure that I go over this stuff with you, because these are big things that I do now that make a big difference, and people trust you over time, and they don't even ask the price. They come to you and say, hey, Brooke, can you help me? You've encouraged me over the last year with your posts, and you don't even know it. Can you tell me what I need to do? And bam, they're a coach, and now they're on the products. And it's just that easy when you're nurturing those relationships. And one thing that I think is huge that I failed at, and I'm working on still, is we focus so much on the recruitment of new people that sometimes the people who are there in the challenge groups and have been for a long time get neglected. And the people who should be getting a lot of the attention, who are the customers who get Shakeology every single month. It's almost like, oh, they're doing it. It's routine. I don't need to worry about them. Wrong. I had someone that was ordering for like 9 months and then stopped, probably because they were in some of my groups, but they weren't really interacting, so I didn't invite them to other ones. So now what I've started doing is any of my past people who are on Shakeology or who have bought a challenge pack, I contact them and say, hey, I'm hosting this group this month. It's a brand new one. Do you want to jump in it? Because I would really like some interaction in there, and it's going to be an amazing group. And I saw that you were in the old group. I'd love to have you in this one. And that's been huge because people are like, yeah, I was actually wanting to restart. And then they order Shakeology again. And then they think about coaching. So it's just making sure that we're fostering those relationships and keeping and nurturing those relationships as well. So that was all about relationship building. And I still had 3 more pages that I could go over. But if you guys have some questions, we can throw those out there right now. We've got about 10 minutes for question and answers. So it's up to you guys if you have anything.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I know you said you've had people who have hit you or maybe a call out, and you suggest to possibly message them. I've had a few people in my who've said that they've wanted to join a challenge group. Like I've made up an event and they've clicked to join. But because they're not my friends, when I've sent them messages, I've tried multiple ways to get a message through them, but they don't respond. One would be possibly because it went to their other box in Facebook. I've got email addresses as well, and sometimes I haven't had a response from them. I can't tag them in Facebook because they're not one of my friends, so that doesn't quite work. I've tried posting in the group or the event page as well. Is there anything that you could suggest that would help with people who aren't your friends who might want to join a challenge group to actually get that interaction going?
Yeah, that is one that I kind of struggle with, especially when you do your like page. It's kind of tricky. So what I started doing is having them contact me. So I would say, hey, I emailed you, and I even comment on that same post and say, hey, I emailed you. If you didn't get it, please email me at da-da-da-da. So then that way it's like if they're really interested, they're going to email me. And most of the time they will. The other way would be, so you can't add them as a friend. I think she was saying she couldn't. So you can't add them as a friend?
I like a friend request, but they didn't accept the friend request. Like it's a bit random, right? Because you kind of want to join something, but you don't know the person. So do you accept their friend request? I don't know.
Right. And normally they would accept it. So it could be that they're not online a whole lot too, because I've seen that happen as well. Like people will take 4 days to accept it. And sometimes they don't remember that they said yes to it. So they're like, who is this person? I don't remember who this is. Kind of like when I was saying earlier, when someone likes it and then they disappear, that's just kind of the same thing. But I would just make sure that like when you comment on it, because if they commented, they should get the alert that you commented. But also in your original call out, if that continues to be an issue, I would go ahead and post your own WooFoo form. Have you seen that or heard of that?
Yeah, I did it through that. So I got all their email addresses.
Gotcha.
But I didn't, and then I had to go find them on Facebook if they didn't want me to contact them on Facebook, right? So it was I just found that a little hard because they were my friends. I would find them. Right. They wouldn't accept my friend request. And the other thing I found was my page is not my own name, right? So when I go to friend request them, it's not even the same person as my page name.
Right. So they're probably really confused who it is. And that was one of the things where whenever we were talking about the like page, that's another reason to try to make it close to your name. I did not. And I wish I would have, because when I do go to try, something that could help with that is having the same profile picture. So then that way they can see that it's you and maybe recognize that. But I would just comment on it as much as you can. But there's always going to be people who say they're interested and they disappear. I mean, I did that whole meal plan post, and I think I sent out like 500 emails, and maybe 100 probably even opened it. I don't know for sure, but that's just how it is too. Especially, people act really interested at that point in time. And it's important, this is something else that we were kind of talking about as well. I think we get caught up in, I have to be present 24/7 responding to messages, and I, constantly checking my phone. And we don't want you guys to feel like that, because you will drive yourself nuts if you feel like that. In the beginning, it is important to respond within I say a 12-hour window. So if any 12 hours, so if they message you at 9 a.m., try to get back to them by 9 p.m. if that's possible in the beginning. As you grow, they understand you have a bigger volume of people. It can take 24 hours sometimes to respond, and that's okay. You're still going to get the volume of people that you need. But in the beginning, don't feel like I need to be constantly, first thing is, don't have all your notifications on your phone. I think Sarah can attest to this. It is the worst thing you can do as a brand new coach. You're going to get overwhelmed because as soon as you start posting more, you're going to get a lot of notifications. You're in a million groups. It's going to drive you crazy to get all those notifications. I can tell you how to shut some of them off. But I don't get any on my phone. I don't want them because it disturbs time with me and him and Fiona, and I don't want to be interrupted. So I have set times. We're talking about power hour. That's your time to respond. And then maybe you give yourself 2 other times during the day to respond, whether it's on your lunch break for 10 minutes, you quickly respond to people. And then you can say, hey, listen, I'm at work. I'll get back to you at 8 p.m. And be reliable. When you say 8 p.m., try to be there 8 p.m. to respond to the questions. But that's why it's so important too when we're talking about getting them on the phone. How much easier would it be on your way home from work to just pick up the phone and say, oh yeah, and have the conversation and send them the challenge pack link later. It's just a lot easier. And that's something like I said, wish I would have done in the beginning, is had more phone conversations with people.
People are waiting in terms of the posting, don't be afraid people want directions. So give a very clear call to action with what you want them to do. So if you want them to email you or whatever to make it easier to contact, then you want to make sure that you do that. And then if you have a friend proofread the ad for you and say, is this very clear what I'm asking for people that are interested? Because if they're interested, they will contact you. And it makes it much easier for you rather than thinking like, oh my God, I can't get a hold of them. Are they interested? But if you make it very clear in the post, then that kind of solves that.
And the other thing too is within some of the scripts you may have seen, we share a video of the program or the coaching opportunity. One of the things that you could do is, as soon as you're done watching it, just make sure you contact me. That's one thing that, I send the video, I'm like, oh, here, watch this. But I don't say, in the beginning, I wasn't saying, contact me back by blah, 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 and we can talk about it. Because if you tell them, I'm going to contact you at 9 p.m. tomorrow, they're going to make sure they watch the video. And then you can follow up with them, and they know that you're serious and that you're looking forward to helping them. One of the other things I wrote down here is build confidence and build up their mindset during those calls or during those conversations. I know we said compliment, but there's also ways of building up their confidence in the program or whatever it is that they're interested in. Because there could be people who you're talking to who haven't worked out in a long time, and they're like, well, there's no way I'm going to be able to do all those push-ups. And it's like, no, you may not be able to do them all in the beginning, but you will later. And that's our role as a coach, to just kind of build them up as much as possible, to know what kind of support they're going to get from you throughout the entire process.
Storytelling is huge. Mm-hmm. So when you're getting to know people, you're thinking about what kind of a person, whether you know them or another testimonial, that you might be able to relate to the person that you're talking to. People really like stories. It's much more effective than facts.
And then after you have that phone conversation with them, and this is another reason, because a lot of these people who you have the conversation with will become your coaches down the road. It helps you so much when they do become a coach to understand what is going to be best for them. So instead of when they become a coach, now you're getting to know them really well. Get to know them before they even enter the challenge group, because it's going to speed everything along. But also when they sign up to coach, you know them. You're meeting them where they're at, and you're like, you know exactly what's going to be good for them. This is their strength. These are their weaknesses. And you know that because you were able to have that one-on-one conversation with them. So does anybody else have any questions about the relationship building and conversation starting? Little webinar, I guess.
Hey, Brooke.
Hey.
Kara. Hi. I know I'm already a coach and an Emerald coach, but I just wanted to see if you have any scripts. Danielle has one that she uses whenever people ask, like the very beginning conversations, that start having with them about the program and about the 21-day fix and about Shakeology and that kind of thing. And I feel like that I get kind of caught up in, like, if I'm sending them so much, I feel like maybe it's overwhelming. And I do try to get on the phone with them because I do much better when I'm talking in a conversation than over email. So I didn't know if you had any examples or if you guys have ever done any like script writing or
for us opening up the conversation first.
Well, like just when they ask about, like, well, the program and also about like the cost of it, like when you're trying to do the sales side of it, when you're trying to get them to actually buy into the program.
The first thing that I always run into is, well, before we talk about that, let's first find out what your goals are, because I'm not a one-size-fits-all coach. That's where I go with it.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
I know to do that. I guess my challenge is more so once I get them interested, because I feel like that I can do that pretty easily. It's just whenever the logistics of keeping them not overwhelmed about thinking about all that the program involves and what they get and the price of it.
Yeah.
To where I don't want them to think too much about it before they just do it.
Well,
like they know they need to do it,
right?
But then they're like, well, I don't know if I should do it, or the price. And I do sales and banking, and so I'm used to sales, but I feel like my email communication is not strong because it's too long. It's too lengthy.
And that is where you like, I would tell you, don't spend time on email then. Your strength is getting on the phone. And so we don't want you to feel like that's the way for you to do it just because that's how we do it. So for you, and like for Jason, it's phone. If he was emailing all day, he'd be a madman. And he does much better in person on the phone. For me, email is better because I can respond quicker, but I like to get on the phone a little bit. And I think for you, especially, instead of like trying to overcomplicate it, I think it'd be so much easier for you to just be like, yeah, let's have a phone conversation at this time. And then that way it's just natural.
Okay.
That would be better for you.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And even though the scripts are great for like, especially like if you're out of town or doing things, you can quickly respond that way. The phone conversations I feel like are going to be much more beneficial for someone like you.
Okay.
And I think that's important for everyone to understand, just because we have the scripts or we have this or that, we want you guys to use your strengths. We don't want you to feel like what we have is the right way. It's just the way that we think helps us. And we had to
I know it definitely works. Right. Obviously you guys do a great job. I just didn't know if there was like maybe a more condensed version, because I feel like for me
there definitely is.
Probably. I'm in my garage. I just got home from work and I'm in my garage. Can you tell?
Yeah. But
I'm like calling you on the way home.
You're fine. There definitely is a more condensed version, and I'll share it with you because it's
okay.
It's more of like if they say, hey, I'm interested in 21-day fix, I'm like, great. Where did you hear about it? And so then that gives you some background, and then you're like, oh, I'm having this group, and the only requirement is Shakeology. Have you heard about that too? And so that's a really condensed way of just jumping into it. And so I do it because I'm used to it, but I need to make sure that I write those down for you guys too, because that's a really easy way of leading into that.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, I'll share that into the group. Let me write that down.
In my mind, whenever I'm talking to people, it's like I'm always thinking if they have an interest in the program or Shakeology I ask just questions about what their needs are. What are they unhappy with? What are they looking for? And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, whose story can I use? That's the first thing. Because before I say anything, I say, oh, you know what? That's so funny. Your story, your reasons are a lot like one of our coaches or one of my friend or me or Brooke or whatever it is. I'm thinking of somebody and that validates them. And then you kind of move into asking some questions and say, well, before, we see if it's a great fit for you, let me ask some questions just to make sure that I know that I'm giving you, what you need to help you succeed.
And that helps them understand that you care enough to know like exactly what's best for them. But also, in healthcare, we co-diagnose. We don't want somebody come in, we read x-rays or we read their stuff and we say, you have this. We want them to feel like they kind of are leading themselves into that diagnosis, if that kind of makes sense. So helping them kind of prescribe it for themselves. So then that way they feel like they own it and they're responsible.
No.
and that they're responsible as well, and they're taking ownership of their decision to do this. And it's not just you saying, this is what I recommend for you to do. It's them saying, yeah, I think this would be a great fit for me. And so they own it, and that makes a big difference too. And I think another big thing is when you're on the phone with them, as you're getting off the phone, act as if they're already in the challenge group and or they're already on
like assumptive sale. Yeah.
Yes. And you're saying, I can't wait for you to get started. As soon as you get your kit, we can get over the phone again. And so after the phone, they're like, oh, okay, I guess I should order, and so that it kind of hurries the process along a little bit. Okay, guys, I think that's about it. If you guys have any other questions, we can post them into the group. I hope this was beneficial about relationships and conversation starters, because I feel like that's where a lot of people said they were kind of struggling a little bit, and even the diamond clubs or diamond groups. So we're going to talk about that in that group as well. So it was nice seeing all your smiling faces, and we'll see you in the groups. Bye, guys.
Bye.